Thank you. My name is Jan Zorz. I work for Internet Society, but I will present this stuff. This is coming from my previous life when I was running Go6. I'm still running Go6. This is Sander Steffann. We are co-authors of RIPE-501 and RIPE-554, and we would like to tell you a story because we received many questions about how this RIPE-554 and RIPE-501 started, what happened, how we developed it, what was the process, so we decided to write a little story. So these are the co-authors. America is not with us today. And about me, so I'm the ISOC Operational Engagement Program Manager. I'm also still the CEO of Slovenian Go6 Institute. I have like 13 years of experience with IPv6, more than 20 years of operational experience building, architecting, and running networks. And I'm an active and contributing member of RIPE and IETF community. I co-authored also one RFC with Randy Bush, that's A plus P, and Ian Ferrer, that you heard him before, the lightweight 4/6. It's actually a derivative. It's a stateful A plus P with some statelessness, right? So I hear Ian laughing. So okay, I will go forward and leave to Sander to introduce himself.
So yeah, I'm Sander Steffann. I'm an independent IPv6 consultant. Have been doing that for a couple of years now. I run a small list-based ISP in the Netherlands, and I've basically been working in the internet industry since about 1995 as a professional small ISP in my hometown, things like that. I'm also the co-chair of the RIPE Address Policy Working Group, where all the policies are made on how IP addresses are distributed and things like that. I'm a co-founder of the Netherlands IPv6 Foundation, and I'm the author of a document about making IPv6 addressing plans, which has been translated into many languages and seems kind of popular. So.
And Marika Kio, she's not with us. She's founder of Double Shot Security. She is into this security, IPv6 security stuff. She is one of the legends. And she's also into the mobile stuff. So she took care of all the mobile requirements in the RIPE-554. And she's also the author of Designing Network Security. So we had lots of knowledge in this stuff. So, the start. Okay, this presentation was written a long time ago and rewritten by Sander on the plane yesterday. So, we did not decide who is doing which part. So, we will just talk over each other for most of the time, probably. But, let me tell you how it all began. Actually, I had a meeting with the person from the government. Actually, we were sitting in a beer garden, having beer. And then I asked him, hey, why are you not requiring IPv6 when you're buying the equipment? And the guy from the government said, well, because we don't know how to. I said, okay, fair enough. And he said, can you write me a text that we could put into the tender and we will require IPv6? And I said, challenge accepted. I went back home. I searched for a week. I was thinking for another week, and then I put together something that I thought it makes sense. Then I put it to our Slovenian IPv6 working group. So Ivan is also part of this working group and had their hands in this beginning of the process. And that at one point in time, we were sitting together with Sander at one RIPE meeting. I think it was general meeting or something. And he told me that he's really, really busy because he needs to write this IPv6 requirement for his government. And I said, well, I already have that. He said, really? And I showed him this document written in Slovenian language through a Google Translate. And he said, this is exactly what I need. Why you don't translate it to proper English and submit it to RIPE IPv6 working group? I said, well, that's a thought. I said then, well, because I'm lazy, I don't like translating. Can you help me with this? And he became a co-author. And there is where the whole train started to go. So, Sander.
Yeah, so the document was translated to English. We put it to the RIPE community on the 1st of October 2010. So we submitted it and said, hey guys, look, this might be a useful document for more than just a few governments. So an announcement was made, like, there's a document here, let's discuss it. And actually, at the end of November, RIPE-551 was published. So this part went really quickly. People said, okay, you know, is this a good starting point? And we explicitly discussed about it, like, we don't want to make too many changes. This is an existing document. Let's just adopt the document as it is at the moment.
Well, we needed 1 year and a half, remember that, and 9 editing cycles.
That's the second one.
No, the second one was 10 editing cycles. I stored all 9 of them. I have them somewhere. It was 1 year and a half before we published 501. That was a long road. And when we published 501, we must promise, we had to promise that we will continuously work on the document, because it was not actually done yet. It couldn't be improved, but people said, okay, publish something already so we have something stable, and then work on improving it. So, okay.
So the document was adopted, and I think this is the important thing. It might get superseded by new versions.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't know at that point what we were getting into.
Yep.
So at some point we said, okay, you know, we can improve it. And immediately after publication, I mean, end of November it was published. In December, people started asking for changes. And on the 3rd of January, the RIPE community said, okay, let's officially start working on the next one.
Yes, so I have a question. How many of you knows and have read RIPE-501 or RIPE-554? Show of hands. Okay, few people, the usual suspects there. So what is this all about? It's the requirement for IPv6 functionality for different types of equipment. And it's divided into mandatory and optional part for every type of equipment. It's a long list of RFCs that the different type of equipment needs to be supported, and also other things that we will talk about a bit later.
So yeah, and this cycle was the really tough one, because here a lot of changes were introduced. A lot of people gave input and feedback. I mean, I just copy-pasted this out of the document, but you probably can't even read it on the screens. But tens of people contributed text, had input. Some people said, oh, we want to change it to the left. Some wanted to change it to the right. And it was very intense.
I think we finalized the document at the IETF meeting in Paris, where we spoke with a lot of experts, Marek and myself. We spoke with a lot of experts in the field, and also at the end, Dave Friedman helped us translating the document from American English to a British English, from S's to Z's. Thanks, Dave. That was lots of work, actually.
So yeah, it's. I mean, I was working with Marika in the US, in San Diego. You were working with her in Paris, because we all live in different countries. So this, was really interesting. But finally, last year we had RIPE-554.
Yep, and I heard that RIPE-501 was translated into 17 languages around the world.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Do you have it translated into Polish language? No?
I know
you probably should.
I know RIPE-554 is now, at the moment it was published, it became part of the Dutch government buyer's manual for ICT equipment.
Yeah, and it's also in Portuguese for Brazilians, and Taiwan government is using it, and so on and so forth.
So the good thing about the document is it specifies what equipment should offer in terms of features. So which features are important, which security RFCs do you want on your devices? And it works both ways, because when RIPE-501 and RIPE-554 were published, people knew what to ask for. They had not much experience with IPv6, but at least they had a guideline of what was important and what was being used. On the other side, the vendors now constantly got the same questions from all their users. So it also influenced the development roadmaps of the vendors, because now they knew that if they wanted to develop something, they should develop what RIPE-554 says. Because if RIPE-554 says it, then customers will ask for it.
So I received a comment at one dinner from the IPv6 guy that is the top IPv6 guy at that particular vendor, that's our beloved big vendor. And he said, Jan, thank you for writing our roadmap. Thank you. Well, I also talked about what RIPE-554 contains. It is a requirement for hosts, then consumer-grade layer 2 switches, enterprise layer 2 switches, routers, firewalls. It also requirements for software and IPv6 requirement for system integrators. Basically saying, if you are buying IPv6 enabled equipment, you should also ask your system integrator how experienced his staff and his team is into integrating these boxes into actual network, because it does not help buying just IPv6 enabled equipment if that guys are not able to integrate it properly into the system.
We've seen problems with that. Integrates that IPv6, oh yeah, I read a book about it once, check.
Well, yeah, well,
I've seen a firewall that said, oh, we support IPv6. So in v4 you could write your firewall policies, and in v6 there was a checkbox, allow v6 traffic, yes, no.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And they claim to support v6, well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
in first version we actually had a declaration that you should print out and give to your system integrator, saying that under criminal and what was that?
Yeah. So basically, they were completely liable for if they offered v6 but couldn't actually deliver it.
Yeah. So they should pay back something. So okay, let's move forward.
So RIPE-554 actually added a few extra categories. Very important one here is the CPE, the customer premises equipment. In the days when we started this, the support was really, really poor. There was almost no CPE you could get for properly supported IPv6. So this requirement, I think somebody told me, was the reason that Linksys implemented v6 at some point.
Really?
Yeah.
But basically, so the first version was we extracted all the musts and shoulds from 6204, RFC 6204 from Oletron. And then put them together, and the community said, no, this is too complicated. You just put in the CPE must support everything that's written in 6204 and be done with it.
Which wasn't? Oh yeah, the CPE is not there.
Okay.
Yeah, so another one, load balancers, has been a really important one. Yeah. There was much demand for proper specifications what a load balancer should do.
And America did majority of the work in the mobile nodes requirements, because at that time she was working for T-Mobile USA, and she had to study all these mobile requirements because it was her job to do that. Yeah. So yeah, and in RIPE-554 we also added a lot of extra text, because if you look at RIPE-501, it was a big list of RFC numbers. And people said, you know, we need some guidelines on how to use this. So we added extra text, made better definitions, wrote a better guide for the declaration of competence for the integrators, new version. But to be honest, this is because we got Marika into the team. She's a lady, and before there was just two guys and a long list of RFCs. And then we got a lady in a team. And then we put some explanation text and more definitions and all this stuff that actually made the document much better. So it's always good to have to have a lady in a team writing these things. Okay.
Yeah. So what else did we do? Now this was getting interesting because, of course, the moment you publish a document that references RFCs, those RFCs are being replaced, are getting updates, new standards are published. So one of the biggest work items for actually writing a new one was fixing all those bugs, changing the RFCs, using, for example, the RFC 6434 for the IPv6 node requirements didn't exist when we wrote 501. But now that there was an RFC that specified node requirements, well, you know, a lot of our work could be thrown out and just be replaced by this standard. And a really, really important one here was all the 3GPP references and the IPsec debate.
Okay, we will go into the IPsec debate later.
So another thing we actually did, some people started complaining. They said, well, you require dual stack, but that means that we have to do v4. I don't care about v4, I want v6. So actually, RIPE-554 is only focused on v6 and says, if you want v4, then you should support these dual stack features.
Yeah, sure.
So
it makes sense. So, okay, IPsec. You guys know that RFC 6434, that's basically the IPv6 node requirements, was moving IPsec from should to must and back to should and back to must and back and forth. So, well, everyone is still a bit confused about this, but now it's in a should. So why? It's in a should because there are some hardware constrained devices like sensors and all this stuff that has very little memory, and the whole full-blown IPv6 stack would not fit into them, and they don't care about IPv6 because it's internal communication.
IPsec.
IPsec, sorry.
So to clarify this, the original spec said that every IPv6 capable device must implement IPsec, and this was made a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, so actually then we thought about how to interpret must and should from RFCs in our language that is mandatory and optional. So then we figured out that must means mandatory and should does not mean optional. So should is not either mandatory and not optional. Did I confuse you to a certain degree? Okay, yes. So,
you're not the only ones.
So we were also confused about that, but at the end the community agreed on moving IPsec to an optional requirement with additional statement that organizations that use IPsec or expect to use it in the future should include the following in the mandatory section when initiating the tender. So we say, okay, you can sell the device. So if the device does not support IPsec in IPv6, this does not render the device invalid in the tender. But if you think you will use IPsec, then you should, well, you must require it.
Yeah. So, and that shows that the RIPE documents are templates. So we provide them, organizations use them, but organizations also change them to their own needs when they are sending out a tender. It's not something you just print out and add to your requirements. It's something you should actually look at.
Yeah. And we got some traction in the community and at vendors. So this was the position paper of our beloved vendor.
Starts with a C. Yeah.
Starts with a C. Actually, they wrote an analysis paper and put it on their front website on the first page, saying that they're expressing its support for the following reasons: that it's deployment-oriented, does not restrict people, and is really good and forward-looking, and so on and so forth. But there's always a but at the end. they thought that they were not enough involved in creation and writing in this document. And they added that they would be very, very glad to collaborate more on the second version of the document. And they did.
A lot.
A lot. But I told them, listen guys, we received many, many comments and suggestions from different vendors. I said, that's perfectly fine. But it's not us to decide what changes gets into the document. It's the community to decide. So if you can pass your suggestions in the community, it's a technical community, RIPE community is a huge technical community, then they can stay in the document. So we were not to blame from the vendor side if something went in. And the good thing on RIPE-554 now is that it's totally neutral. It's agreed by the community. If you put these requirements in your tenders, nobody can blame you being vendor-centric. It is a totally neutral set of requirements. You talk now.
So, well, actually, this is part of what you're working on.
Oh yeah.
Getting it into the European Commission.
So again, me. I need more.
Yeah.
So this is we are working on a Gen 6 project. Actually, Slovenia is part of a big European Commission project. We are working on introducing the mobile IPv6 in emergency response teams. I think I was talking about this some time ago at this event. But part of this project is also to create a template for European Commission for IPv6 profile. And we did it together with German government. We spent quite a lot of time. So I also invited Sander to this discussion. We pointed out some errors. Germans did their job in a really German precise way. That's brilliant.
Right. If you think that the RIPE-554 document lists a lot of RFCs and technical stuff, look at the German document. It's about 3 times as big.
Yes.
So they took all the requirements and all the optional things from RIPE-554, put them in big spreadsheets, and at every line even added comments saying, okay, it has to require this, but we also want to change this, and this subsection should be implemented in this way. And
it is done in very efficient German way. So all this is going into generic EU IPv6 profile. So expect in half a year or a year that your government will receive from European Commission a mandate saying, you need to use this template if you're a government or governmental organization when you're buying the IPv6 equipment and services. So get ready for it.
So, yeah, and the thing is that the reason why we're always asked to present about RIPE-554, it's actually being used all over the world. RIPE is Europe, Middle East, part of Asia, but RIPE-554 is becoming like the standard for buying IPv6 capable equipment. Vendors are changing the roadmaps to meet it. Organizations all over the world are translating it and using it in their own buyers' buying procedures. So it's actually becoming one of the standard documents for non-technical people. You know, if a technical person often kind of knows what he wants, but if you have big organizations, big governments, they have a separate department that does all the tendering. They need guidance.
So a little story. Again, the same guy from our beloved vendor that put the position paper on showed me the spreadsheet. It's a big spreadsheet with all their products at the top, with the telephone numbers of the product managers, and on the left side is RIPE-554 compatibility going down, and they put check, cross, and they said, you gave us the tool that now we can internally chase our product managers, and I called them every month and asked them, how many crosses did you turn into checks? So now they have internal tool. We made them internal tool to push the V6 implementation on these big boxes.
So,
we came to an end.
Yeah, so, well, questions? Comments? but most important, because this is a community effort, input for new versions. Because all the time we get requests, people saying like, oh, RIPE-554 is great, but Cisco doesn't like something about the QoS that we put in there. There have been other suggestions about adding different types of devices, about expanding it, about all kinds of things. So there's always a dilemma here. When RIPE-501 was published, it was like the standard document at that time. Then a year and a half, 2 years later, RIPE-554 was published, which replaced it. So on one side, we have to be careful not to replace the document like every year, because then people will lose track of what the best document is to use. Mm-hmm. On the other side, we can't let it stay as it is for too long, because technology keeps on developing. So
I mentioned the option that we might restart the work on the 554 BIS, and the IPv6 working group chairs were jumping up to the ceiling saying, no, we are not changing the number. So now what we are doing is we are collecting the comments that are actually just errata comments that would not change the number. That's minor changes. And we are collecting the comments and suggestions that are bigger change and would require the number to change. But we are waiting all the time, the pain of not changing the document. When this pain is bigger than changing the number of the document, then we will start working on it. So any comments, any suggestions for improvements are really, really welcome. Any questions?
Anybody planning on going to use this document?
The room is sleeping.
I think so.
So, oh yeah, we are standing between you and the food. Okay.
I think we better get down then.
Yes. So thank you very much.
Thank you.